Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Desi, and as you can tell, I'm getting over being sick, but we're gonna roll with it. January, I read 6 books, and I'm just gonna get into it because let me tell you, I read a little bit of everything, and it was definitely the perfect kickoff to my reading year. So for my first 2 books, I read Wild Love and Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver, and it's a duo series, which I truly enjoyed. Like, it was such a page turner that when one book ended, I just picked up the other book, and I felt like it was a continuous story. Like, I was in this little town for like a summer, and I got both stories. So let's start with this first story, Wild Love. So you have Rose and Ford, and Rosie Ford, and they grew up together, and this is kind of like their right timing, and they end up getting together in the most beautiful way. And I absolutely loved it. I love them together. I love their banter, and it fits, and it was fantastic. Now with the second book, you follow her brother, and then you also follow a girl named Skylar. She comes to the town to record her second album, I believe, and it's an independent album, and because she wants some say in what she's, singing, but she's a city girl through and through, and she gets into these pickles, and of course, her knight in shining armor comes to rescue her, and they get forced into these situations, and eventually they start falling for each other because it is like magnetic chemistry, and they were trying to fight it, and eventually there's like some forced proximity, and it was just the perfect series to start off the month. Okay, my next book is nothing like my first 2, and my next book was Everybody in My Family Has Killed Somebody by Benjamin Stevenson. And let me tell you, I was not ready for this. I listened to it on audio, and the narrator was perfect pace, perfect pitch, everything. I think I enjoyed the book as much as I enjoyed it because of the narration and just because of the pacing he had. Great. So we follow this guy named Ern, and he is invited by his outcasted family. There seems to be a little bit of family drama, but he is invited to a family reunion of his brother who has been recently incarcerated for murder, and they rent out this ski lodge type retreat, B&B type situation, and he is awaiting his brother getting released from jail, and he had been there for a few years, and all of his family doesn't like him because here's the kicker: he was the main guy that testified against his brother in court. Oh, and while they're there, a body shows up before his brother. So there's a little murder mystery. Who is this guy in the snow? How did he die? And then we start realizing that everyone in Ernie's family, including himself, has killed somebody. And you find out throughout the whole book of this wild ride of this different perspective dynamic of a family, how really truly just crazy cakes this story can get. Okay, so my other audiobook I read is What I Ate in One Year by Stanley Tucci. And when I tell you, this man has such a palette for a perfect mix of simple ingredients, simple foods, but with an elegant twist to it, it was very intriguing to me once I got into the book. We follow him and his daily lives and what he does, and it's kind of like a journal entry-esque type format, which I really enjoyed, because you do follow him through the year of what he eats, and he goes to restaurants, he eats at home, he eats on location for his movies and his work, and it is just fascinating. And he also puts in a little bit of humor about his younger children and what they eat and what they don't eat, and it really just makes you feel just super normal as like a parent. You're like, okay, your kid doesn't eat as much as my kid doesn't eat. This is great. Like this, I feel, it's normal, right? Right. It was a really good listen to. Okay. My book club read I read is Behind Every Good Man by Sara Confino. And I think that's how you say it. So I apologize if I butchered it, but I really thought this book was a hoot and a half because you get 60s, you get a little political, you have this main character and her husband cheats on her. And instead of staying, she's like, no, I'm going to leave. And what's going to be the kicker is not only am I going to get divorced in a time where that is not very favorable, I'm going to show my children those aspects, but I'm also going to go back to work because I feel like I don't want to depend on this toad of a husband that obviously hasn't done well. So what I know is politics. What I know is being in that sort of environment. So she decides to help the opponent of her husband's so her husband's in politics and he's on the campaign for Sam. Well, she decides to go with the opposite guy, Michael. And she's like, you need me more than I need you. And this is how we're going to do it. My dad's been in politics and she has a voice and I feel like she has a name as well, but she doesn't like to use it. And I feel like it's a great adventure of, you know what? I don't have to stay. And you know what? Like, I'm going to be better without you because I was the one that like pushed you and, gave you that foundation that you needed to be successful. And I really liked it. I was surprised. And I think the girls in my book club were surprised too, but it was definitely a good read. Not super like politic, rights, wrongs, your views. It was just more of the story of the race of the campaign and just her story more than, politics, which I kind of liked. It was like a perfect mix. You got the message, you got what she was doing, but it wasn't like overpowering. And I truly like that. And then my other book I did read was The Wild Robot with my son, and we enjoyed it. And it was just such a cute book because you have like this little robot Roz, and she was on a shipment boat and it crashed and she washed on shore and the otters like opened her box and accidentally turned her on. And then she had to survive in this like forest island and she ran across a nest that was broken and there was one surviving egg. So she figured out how to keep that little egg alive and have him be hatching. And he thought that was his mama. And for all intents and purposes, it is. It was just the cutest little story. And I loved reading it. And so we're going to read the second and third, which I'm just super excited that I found a book that me and my son can like really enjoy together. So that's going to be it for my wrap up for January. I have big plans for February. Don't you worry. And hopefully I'm not going to be sick in February, right? That's the hope. But until next time, I'll talk to you soon.